Night, everyone. This is update for April 1, 2022, day 37 of the war. We would like to discuss three topics that are not exactly related to maps, because there were a lot of questions from viewers based on the video from yesterday. So if you would like to skip, probably skip about like 5 or 6 minutes worth of video, and then we'll move to maps after that. So there are three topics that we would like to address. One is the withdrawal of Russian troops from the north of Ukraine. Second are the sizes of the units. And the third one is supply of Azov by helicopters. So first, let's start with the Russian withdrawal from the north of Ukraine here. As you can see, this one is straight north, this is more like northeast. So what we learned is actually that this withdrawal started around March 29th, evening of March 29th, and most of the Russian troops actually withdrew during the March of 30th, and they only left rear guard units to kind of cover the withdrawal, and they mostly left on the towards the night of the 31st and probably early morning today. This is true for this this group that's west of Kyiv, and something similar is going on here with the northeastern. Maybe they a little bit delayed because there's much more distance here, and you can see here we actually showing the scale. So this distance here from Kyiv to here is about 300 kilometers plus minus, right? So this line is about 200 kilometers. So this is what really happened, and then we were really surprised that there was no pursuit, because retreating Russian troops are perfect. Disengaging is generally very difficult military maneuver and to execute, and Russian troops managed to leave without essentially any losses. They only lost broken equipment that broke down on the road, so they just left a bunch of it because a lot of it is actually poorly maintained. But nonetheless, they managed to escape without losing much. And at first we thought that this is because mostly Ukrainian units here are Ukrainian militia, which is not really mobile. It's not really capable of doing any complex maneuvering like pursuit and so on. So that was kind of fair, but then we thought more about this, and we really, there are 5, well, you can say 4 at least Ukrainian brigades that could really do a pursuit, and they have self-propelled howitzers of 122 millimeter size, 152, so they really could attack and inflict quite a bit of damage. And this didn't happen really, and at the same time, in Ukraine internally, by the mass media, it was presented as if there's just like some kind of fighting is going on, that Ukrainian troops are really liberating and fighting for every single, town and village and so on, which is not true at all, because they just coming into these villages and towns that are basically, abandoned by Russian troops. And so this really kind of made us think that there is some kind of political deal between the Ukrainian government and Russian government that was reached in Turkey at the beginning of this week, where in Russian side offered to remove troops from the north and northeast of, basically from around Kyiv, and in return Ukrainian side kind of gives like free passage to that. So that's really what we think is really happening, because that really makes more sense out of all of this. So this was one topic that we wanted to discuss. The second is the size of the units. So just for everyone, Ukrainian troops mostly have just brigade-size units. And those brigades could be just regular brigade or tank brigade or Navy infantry brigade or airborne brigades. Well, they also have regiments and battalion, but they're really small size, and we're not going to touch them because they don't make a true difference on the front lines. So you can assume kind of very crudely that Ukrainian brigade is about 4.5 regular ones, 4.5 thousand of servicemen, and usually it's kind of like from like Soviet legacy. So only about half of it is really just, I'd say, fighting troops. Probably if that's the right way to say it, plus minus. We're not saying exactly. And Ukrainian brigades are structured in a way that they kind of like standalone coherent units where you have a little bit of tanks, a little bit of infantry, then you have self-propelled howitzers, and so it's kind of can stand, it's kind of like coherent, small coherent unit, right? And airborne brigades tend not to have tanks in them, and the same for naval infantry brigades, right? And they tend actually to be a little bit smaller, slightly less than 4,000. You can say 3.7, 3.8, plus minus. It's we're just saying very crude numbers, right? We're not trying to be perfect here. And out of the brigades, the airborne 81st, 80th, 95th, 79th, and 25th. Those are airborne brigades. So basically, they tend not to have. They can receive probably support, tank support, just in general, but that's not how they were envisioned in the first place, right? So this is a little bit about Ukrainian troops. Hope that clarifies more or less. In terms of Russian troops have a little bit more variety. So they have division level units, and that's the sort of, well, it's not the largest one actually. So that's kind of like that's a recent sort of creation of the past, like let's say 8 years in Russia. Before that, they have also only brigade level units. But now they created, especially past like 3-4 years, they created bunch of divisions. And you can kind of crudely say that standard division is about 10,000 people. And there are several kinds of those divisions. So there are just regular, call it like infantry division. They all motorized, right? So they're not on foot. They all have some BMP or BTR, all of that MTLB and all that stuff. But so they tend not to have tank units, and usually they would, like for example, this one, 144th Division. It received actually as support 59th Tank Regiment, just to support it, because it's originally it doesn't have tanks in it. But then they have also, Russian troops have tank divisions, and they actually come in two kinds. 2 tank regiments and 3 tank regiments. And 90th happened to be 3 regiment division, which really means each regiment is about 90 tanks. So they would have 200. This unit would have 270 tanks. That's pretty huge, I would say. Then there are more like sort of standard, tank divisions like 4s, which would have only 2 regiments. So that really means it has 180 tanks in it. The same goes for 47s, it's 180. So we're only aware of this 90th Tank Division that has 3 regiments. We're not sure why, actually. And then they also have like mechanized or motorized division, whatever you want to call it. But this one is kind of mirror. So this one is a mirror of the Tank Division, because Tank Division would normally have 2 tank regiments and 1 infantry regiment. And the motorized division has actually a mirror, so it would have 1 tank regiment and 2 motorized infantry regiments, right? So that's kind of about division level units. Then they have also regular brigades, and those brigades similar to Ukrainian, right? So that's about 4,000, maybe 4.5 regular ones. Then they also have airborne and naval infantry brigades, which again, smaller in size. Oh, and we forgot to mention about the airborne divisions. Russian has also airborne division, and actually several of them. And then they tend to be smaller in size, so they're probably 8,000 to 9,000 people. And they tend not to have obviously tanks in them, because by the nature of it. So they would have really light equipment. Usually that really means that they don't even have like BAM pad, but it's called BAMDA. It's just lighter, even more vulnerable armored fighting vehicle. So this is about some of the Russian units. Then they also have special forces brigades. This is kind of like I don't know if it's right. It's kind of like they not really, in a way, it's kind of like reconnaissance units. There's a lot of other skills, and they tend to be really small. The skeleton would be like really 300 to 500 people, and then they can beef them up to like 1500, 1700 people. So they can really vary in size depending on the task that they need to do. So so this is I think we covered almost everything. And then there are also two kind of peculiar units: is First Army Corps and the Second Army Corps. The second one has 3 brigades in it, and the first one has 4 brigades in it. These units were mostly formed from collaborators in Donetsk and Lugansk region of Ukraine. And then the commanders from about platoon level are from Russian army, right? So the soldiers kind of the lowest ranking soldiers are from Ukrainian collaborators, and then the higher level are from Russian army. Oh, and also we've got to mention that there are also a couple of more peculiar units that Russian troops have. Is this 7th military camp and the 4th military camp. They are essentially equivalent to regular brigade. And then they also have 126 Coastal Defense Brigade, which is similar to Naval Infantry Brigade, probably even smaller in size. So hopefully this addresses all of the questions about the units, and it makes it easier for viewers to understand what's happening here. In terms of now, let's go back to the last question about the helicopter. So people were asking, like, okay, how is it possible that Russian raiders don't detect helicopters and they don't shoot them down? So we need to understand how actually radars work as a technology. So they emit electromagnetic waves, and the object, let's say airplane or helicopter, if it's up in the sky, they reflect back that part of that electromagnetic radiation. And so that's how the radar kind of catches the airplane or helicopter. And the higher it is in the sky, it's perfect because the air is sort of kind of lets the radiomagnetic waves to kind of pass through. So, and then the metal does not allow that, right? It reflects part of it. So you kind of have perfect signature, right, from airplane or from helicopter if they're high in the sky, and then it's really easy to catch. So when, let's say, and it's more relevant for helicopters because they can fly really low, like 5 meters above the ground, right? If you fly 5 meters above the ground, you realize that if radar emits whatever it emits, a lot of it is getting lost because there are simply trees, there are houses. So basically it kind of creates a lot of noise for radar. So it really almost useless and almost impossible to detect low-flying objects. And then exactly for that reason, that was done that way, that they were flying at 5 meters above the ground. The other trick that Ukrainian pilots did was flying at night. That makes it even more challenging and more kind of prone to disaster, but they would leave at 4 a.m. So they fly at night. So even if there is someone with anti-rocket missile, like human, right? Not because the radars wouldn't work in this case, but let's say human, right? With this needle Russian anti-aircraft missile. So it would be hard for human to actually detect any target at night, right? Especially if it flies very low, and then it's kind of relatively quick for human. So that's how they managed to kind of do the, because this is, turns out that this has been going on for probably since the beginning of the siege. So this is only was discovered apparently a few days ago by the Russians because they by accident shot down this helicopter. And so that makes it even more difficult, right? Because they fly at night, then they arrive probably 5 a.m. to Mariupol, and then they unload, load back, and then they fly back, and they fly to Dnipro. This is the city where they fly. So they still kind of flying in the at dawn when it's still kind of difficult. And so even like, for example, this helicopter that was shot down, the first shot didn't work out because they also have special kind of like false kind of targets for the rocket. So the helicopter actually emitted, like kind of like launched those false targets, and the first rocket actually missed completely. Only from the second shot they managed to shut it down. So these missions are super difficult. We totally agree, and they in a way kind of a little suicidal. And so, but Ukrainian pilots do that, and from what we understand, the way they do it is just you do it once and you kind of like done. So it's kind of like a rotational duty for everyone. So hopefully this answered. Sorry, it was probably a little bit longer than we thought, but there were a lot of questions about this, and hopefully this addresses those questions. So finally, now let's look actually at what's going on here on the front lines. We believe that we made actually a mistake by putting 4th Tank Division actually here near in the 20th Army. And some of the viewers, they pointed to us that it was actually fighting here in Sumy and Akhtirka region, so it clearly belongs to the 1st Tank Army. So we're actually gonna move it there. So let's start with what's going on here around Kharkiv. Just positional fighting, shelling, nothing really, no real movements here. And then let's look at Izyum situation, because that's the most sort of difficult situation in general. So what we also learned, that Russian troops committed 3rd Mechanized Division into the fight. So it fights along with the 47th Tank Division. So basically they all getting expanded in the process. However, they also do make progress. So it does look like Ukrainian army lost this peninsula that they used to hold, and if you see, the bridgehead has expanded a little bit, right? So it's expanded a little bit towards the west, and in the south we're not aware of that. But generally, you can see that this is much more established bridgehead at this point. And the objectives for this bridgehead is, the main one that we believe is this town of Barvinkova, and that's where the most of the effort was actually today. They were attacking. They partially captured this village of Mala Komyshevaha. The other objective towards the south is town of Slavyansk, but we believe this one is much more sort of relevant, and that's real target, because it allows kind of like cuts through the supply lines better. If you go south, it's just better pass to encircle the rest of the Ukrainian troops. So we know that here there is 81st Brigade and 95th Brigade, but really thinking about this, it's very clear there are more Ukrainian units here, because simply this is really a lot of equipment, really a lot of strength, and 2 brigades simply won't be able to hold this Russian troops here. So what we know is that we do know that the 3rd Tank Brigade is fighting somewhere, and we believe it's probably is committed here. We're also learning that 17th Tank Brigade is fighting, and we thought initially that it was defending Kryvyi Rih, but we see that it's basically looking at the intensity of the fighting, or lack of intensity, lack of fighting over there near Kryvyi Rih, it kind of tells us that it's fighting somewhere else, and this is probably why we think that these two units are fighting here as well. We don't have firm confirmation, so but this is a sort of educated guess, call it this way. So the summary is that Russian troops managed to expand the bridgehead, and they continue hammering. And how long Ukrainian defenses here hold remains to be seen. But the way it goes, it doesn't look very, very good. Let's put it this way. This is how it looked actually the day before. You can see, right? So like this is, you see now it's much bigger. It's much more established right at this point. So then the other locations is Severodonetsk. This is, as we discussed, this is kind of bridgehead, Ukrainian bridgehead, and Russian troops try to eliminate it at all costs, because obviously this is opportunity for Ukraine to kind of launch attack from it in the future. So for obvious reasons, they want to eliminate it. Then there is also town of Popasna. There's ongoing fighting over it. It's probably at this point reduced to rubble. And then near the town of Donetsk, let's see if we have here. So there are two axes of attack. One is Avdiivka, where we discussed that Russian troops really failed here, suffered significant losses. The other one was Mariupol, where they managed actually to do some progress, and turns out it's actually not that big progress. This is actually information from Russian sources. They only managed to capture a third of this village. So really, they didn't do much of the progress here. This kind of front line so far, we haven't heard anything. So we believe it's kind of, well, there is ongoing fighting, but there is no real movement, no real progress by either side here. So let's actually have a quick look at Mariupol, because I'm sure a lot of people curious about it, what's going on there. So what we learned that Russian troops made a little bit more progress in capturing the center of the city. So you see this kind of bulge here, and they also obviously managed to move a little bit further towards the center here in this area. So they haven't captured yet railroad station. This is obviously my main objective here. This is what they're trying to capture. And then here we don't have more information. We're pretty sure that they probably a little bit that they came closer here towards the perimeter of Azovstal, but there is no real, verifiable information here. So let's just look a little bit here in Kherson region and Mykolaiv region, because there's actually a little bit of changes here, and we want to mention this to you. So what we learned, this is how we kind of started to think that 17th Brigade was moved towards Izyum, is because now this is actually here defensive line are manned by 60th Brigade. This is what we actually first time hearing that this brigade even existed, but this is who is defending frontline here. So given that there is very extremely difficult situation in Izyum, we're pretty sure that this was pulled back there. And the 60th Brigade actually managed to squeeze Russian the scouting troops like about 10 to 15 kilometers down south. This is probably not the best, not the most intelligent strategy, but just simply squeezing them, because the much more logical would be actually to cut here and encircle, because this is not really much troops, probably 500-600 in total of Russian troops here. So that's nothing really huge here. We haven't heard any updates regarding this Ukrainian attacks towards Kherson, so we assume they probably stopped, but we really don't have much information about it. So this is what's going on. I think this is kind of like relatively quiet day because the Russians are really regrouping and preparing for major attack in Donbass, because that's going to be kind of like this will be decisive battle for both sides. And Russians now, since they withdrew from Kyiv, because they withdrew not because they just wanted to, but because they kind of had to, because they were stuck, and there was a lot of Russian troops that were stuck there that they were not, they were sort of dying by 1,000 cuts, very small cuts, but every day losses, and you're just not making any progress, and yet you're losing troops. And it's a lot of troops that stuck there. So they were forced to do that. That was actually an intelligent decision to do that, probably like 2 weeks late. But nevertheless, they did that. So some of those troops, as we discussed before, are probably getting reallocated towards Donbass and Kharkiv region. So we not even certain, it's like 100% guaranteed that there will be significant battles in the coming days going on in Donbass. So we'll keep you posted on that. Okay, well, thanks for watching today, and until tomorrow, thanks again. Bye-bye.